This is Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3, and it is all brought to you by the folks at A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. CEO Daniel Madelon with us. What's up, man? How are you?
Good, doing well. And you?
Could not be better. Anytime we get to talk to good people, I'm always up for that. Today, Commissioner Michael W. Nail of the Georgia Department of Community Supervision. As the commissioner, Michael oversees the day-to-day operations of one of the nation's largest community supervision agencies and is responsible for adult felony supervision of over 200,000 individuals. But it sounds like you got your hands full.
We definitely got our hands full. There's no doubt about that.
Goodness gracious. So this is a relatively new department. So help me understand what it is, and folks who are listening right now understand what it is that y'all do.
Sure. Back in 2015, the legislature created the Department of Community Supervision. Prior to that, probation was handled by the Department of Corrections. Parole was handled by the Parole Board in regards to supervision. And it had been tried before of merging the two. Of course, under corrections, they said, yeah, we'll do it if it comes under us. Under parole, they said, we'll do it if it comes under us. Governor Deal said, we're going to take care of that. We're just going to create a separate state agency and not have all the bickering and the politics involved with it. Made good sense because there was so much duplication of services, and it was not a good utilization of resources for the state of Georgia. A lot more efficient, but even more than that, more effective. And I think that's the end of the game. So merged, now we handle all, regardless of whether you're on a felony parole or felony probation, we're going to be supervising your case, and there's also a continuity for those that we're working with.
Yeah, sure. What is that? I mean, if you're someone that falls into this category, how do you benefit or help the people that are being supervised?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, most of the times they didn't just get there by making a mistake. They've had a lot of areas of trouble in the past, and when they land on our doorstep, we look at it as an opportunity to assist them, opportunity to get them to become law-abiding citizens, tax-paying citizens, give them resources, and when I say give them, I really mean just give them the opportunity. At the end of the day, it's up to them whether they want to take advantage of that opportunity.
Do you care to go into what those resources might be?
Yeah, absolutely.
For anybody that, because I don't know.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is, I do want to say when the agency was started, the legislature was very, very wise because they mandated that we follow evidence-based practices. So everything we do is based on research. It's not just gut. It's not what this person feels or that person feels. So research tells us that individuals, if they're going to be successful, employment is important.
Sure.
Housing is important.
Of course.
Remaining substance abuse free is important. Education is important, and addressing mental health. Those are the primary ones that wherever you are on the spectrum of needs, sometimes we get.
I bet it's all. So in some cases,
many times it is all. And in all fairness, there's some that quite honestly they don't need our services, and that's where it's a balancing act on determining where we put our resources. We focus the majority of our resources on the high risk, high need, and we do evaluate them on a validated assessment instrument that shows those needs. They also show the risk of reoffending, and based on that, we apply the level of supervision that is needed for that individual.
There you go. And so what's the overlap? How did you become acquainted with Michael, Daniel?
So when we launched A Second Chance Monitoring, obviously, which I've been in and out of the monitoring world probably over the last 20 years or maybe 18 years, but we wanted to see how we could kind of help in any way we could, but a lot of their stuff goes through, state contracts, and then they have preferred recommendations of, hey, if you need this, then you go here. So that's initially how I had met Commissioner Nail, and I don't know how you guys got him on the show today because he's almost impossible to nail down, but thankful for you coming on the show. It's what they do is great, helping people. We in some capacity on the bonding side try to give these people resources as well too, right? So if they don't end up over there at the end of the case, or afterwards, we're kind of guiding them into the right places so they don't end up necessarily.
So that's a step further.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Michael Nail, the commissioner that we have on this morning here on Back Your Blue from the Georgia Department of Community Supervision, instrumental in casting a vision for the creation of the Department of Community Supervision, and was the first commissioner in 2015 when they launched it. But prior to that, you had multiple senior and executive leadership roles with the Georgia Department of Corrections and the State Board of Pardons and Paroles, including Director of Probation Training, Director of Probation, Corrections Division Director, Executive Director of the Georgia State Board of Pardons and Paroles. Buddy, goodness gracious, you've done quite a bit. How'd you get started? I guess where does all this begin before you get to knock out all of those incredible titles?
Yeah, well, that's a polite way of saying I'm old.
Well, look, I've been trying to figure it out. That's how I do it nowadays. You caught me though.
Yeah, been in the business 35 years now, going on 36. But I actually started out as a state probation officer.
Okay.
Majored in criminal justice. I actually started out as a sociology major, started taking some criminal justice classes, and really gravitated towards it. And then got a chance to see what probation and parole was about in college. And so when I graduated college, I applied to be a probation officer for the state. And the rest is really history. I've been fortunate. I've worked with great people. I've worked for great people. And I've been blessed along the way, in all sincerity. But really, it just started out as a probation officer.
Interesting. Good Lord puts you where you need to be, I reckon. But you were able to be a part of streamlining the prison diagnostic system, starting with Georgia's first day reporting centers. Mm-hmm. You have to explain that to a layman like me, and I would imagine people listening because have no idea what that is.
Before I went to parole, I was over operations for corrections, and one of the things, we had a serious backlog, a jail backlog of about 4,000 people sitting in county jails waiting to get in the system. And so we had to go in and look and see where the holdup is, where's the clog at, and we realized it was at diagnostics. So we took about a 30-day process and streamlined it down to about 10.
And so is that when they get to Jackson?
That's correct.
When they get to Jackson.
That's correct. Now, at that time, there were about 4 diagnostic facilities, and really we realized we could actually do this with 2 and streamline the operation, and so we did. When you talk about the day reporting center, I think it's important to understand that was not our idea. We learned that actually from Colorado when we visited other states, just like with the prison diagnostics from Pennsylvania. I think you learn from others. So the day reporting centers, I was fortunate to be part of that startup, and right now we have 35 of them. It continues to be our most successful alternative to prison.
Because this is about to ask you what that is, because I don't know what a day reporting center is.
Day reporting centers it's what we call wraparound services, where an individual will be sentenced as a condition of their probation or parole to complete the day reporting center. Those needs that I referenced before, all of those are delivered there in-house. So they address those needs, but also an important part after you complete a day reporting center, whether it be from 6 months to 12 months, you have aftercare services and follow-up. And I will say this, yes, it's about the success of the individual, but when you go to one of those 35 graduations and you see that individual getting their family back and getting their children back and reunification, that has so many far-reaching effects.
Positive effects.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely.
I can completely see that, as I know how important my family is to me. And had I done something that got myself in trouble, which, goodness, I probably should have been in trouble a whole bunch of times in my life. You know, I mean, we've all been there, right? We've all done something. Be like, man, I shouldn't have done that.
Yep.
Whatever it is, and there's different varying degrees of that for sure. But I think at the end of the day, that it doesn't matter what you've done, your family's still important to you. The people you love, you still
Absolutely.
love. And I could see how that would be such a positive thing for those folks.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's some that they don't have family. We'll get individuals that they've served 40 years in prison, and when they come out, they have no family. They literally are like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do now. And that's where we come in. And you can imagine the terrifying effect of your daily routine, and suddenly it's now, what I do. And that's where we come in, and we assist them with reentry. We assist them in finding housing. And listen, I do want to say this. It has nothing to do with your political views on crime. It has everything to do as a community and a state if we're going to be smart on crime, and that's what it's about. I think sometimes we make it too complicated, but in our job, if you've been to prison before, we don't want you going back. If you haven't been to prison, we don't want you going there in the first place.
Yeah, sure.
And that right there is the name of the game. And we've got over 2,000 employees, 1,500 that are sworn. And I would be remiss if I didn't brag on the work that they do day in and day out. They're here for a reason, and they truly view it as a calling. I couldn't be more proud to work alongside them.
That's an incredible story, and I want to continue the conversation with Commissioner Michael W. Nail, Georgia Department of Community Supervision, along with Daniel Madelon. He is the CEO of a Second Chance Bail Bonds and a Second Chance Monitoring. We'll continue next here on Extra 106.3. Welcome back to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Coward, along with Daniel Madelon. He is the CEO of a Second Chance Bail Bonds and a Second Chance Monitoring. Our guest today, Commissioner Michael W. Nail, the Georgia Department of Community Supervision. I want to make a comparison, and you can tell me if I'm out in left field with a football bat or if I'm on to something. So I also work with the Warrior Alliance, which is the official veterans partner of the Atlanta Braves here at Extra. And they talk about assisting folks getting out of the military, and they've had such a structure of here's what you do when you wake up, here's what you do throughout the day, here's what you do at night, and then the next day you repeat the process. And when they get out of the military, sometimes veterans been in there 20, 25, 30, 35 years, they don't know what to do when they get into the civilian world. Now, I'm not comparing the situations necessarily, but when you have done something for a really long time and you're asked to do something completely different, sometimes it gets overwhelming. Sometimes it gets frightening. Sometimes you don't know which way to turn. And you said something earlier in that last segment about folks who have been in prison for a long time. They don't have family. They don't have a place to live. They don't have a place to go. And they've done the same routine for so long, they don't know where to begin. Is that a fair comparison? I
think it's a very fair comparison, and I'm glad that we have support network for our veterans. Interestingly, we just with the Council on Criminal Justice, they started a veterans network, and as a result of some of the things you just referenced, unfortunately, some veterans find their way under our supervision. And I am really embarrassed to say that before being asked to work on that task force at the federal level, I couldn't tell you how many veterans that we had under supervision. But we've since changed that. We now work closely with veteran organizations for those veterans that have kind of gone in a path they didn't desire to go for whatever reason. So there's that segment that we have to work with also. And a lot of times we look at the veterans that we actually employ to help, so we can understand that. But it's a far-reaching level of services. It's not just about if you're a veteran that didn't engage in the criminal justice system. It's also you have veterans that, for whatever reason, whether it's mental health issues, a lot of reasons that unfortunately make it our way. And we're getting better at that and understanding that these individuals sacrificed for us. There's no doubt about it, and we owe it to do what we can, not just to them, but anybody that's in need of our services, to help them.
Is it different? I don't want to say the treatment being different, because I'm sure that's not the case. But is there a different program, a different way of handling a veteran versus someone who isn't? And I don't know why there would be, but it seems like there might be.
Yeah, I think so. And one thing is, if I could wave a magic wand, we would have a system is one size fits one, and not one size fits all.
Sure.
And everyone has different levels of needs and risk. The veterans may have a different level or may have a different need from their background. That is important, but it's important that we meet them where they're at and we address the needs of the individual. And that's what we try to do each and every day, and we are making strides in forming veteran groups. I know the prison system, I want to commend them because they have a veterans dorm where it is veterans, and I will tell you this.
Veterans court.
Veterans courts, absolutely.
And not in every county, but in more and more it's starting to become a...
Absolutely. And I think that's a very, very good point, that it is recognized. But here's the cool thing. Research shows that in those prisons throughout the nation that had veteran-specific dorms, and I don't want to get over my good friend Commissioner Tyrone Oliver's lane, but I will tell you that research shows that you have fewer instances of misconduct. You have better instances of support when they are released. So it's there. The research shows that. So if it shows it for them, one would only imagine it would show it for the community setting. The problem is the community side has not been involved in it enough. When I say community corrections. Mm-hmm. So we're still getting our feet wet in that, but I think it's very promising.
So if you have community dorms that are set up just for veterans and community courts and things like that, and you see better, is it behavior? Am I on the right track? Better behavior with veterans? Is it because of the structure that they've come from to begin with? And if that's the case, is it good for veterans who are part of the Georgia Department of Community Supervision? Is it better for them to be involved with other people in the same or a similar situation because of the leadership that they have instilled in them through the training that they received in the military?
Yeah, I think so. I think they all have a common denominator coming from the same place. That is always extremely helpful in those environments, without a doubt.
Yeah. Mental health. I heard you mention that in the first segment, and that's something that I think in our country in general, we have a major situation. You could even call it a crisis, across the board. Just, I don't think we understood as a community, as a people, as a country, how mental health was struggling. People are struggling with mental health. And it doesn't matter if you're a veteran and you've been in war and you've seen things that you just don't know how to deal with, or you've been a police officer and you've seen things you don't know how to deal with, a firefighter, seen things you don't know how to deal with, or somebody that's just been in a really bad situation of your own making or not.
Right.
And you still have those things that you don't know how to deal with. What's the focus on mental health when it comes to the Georgia Department of Community Supervision?
I think the focus on mental health is first recognize that we're not mental health providers, and we've made steps in that where we broker services through treatment providers from mental health. We have a close working relationship with Commissioner Tanner at DBHDD. He sits on our board, but we've got to recognize, number one, we cannot do this alone. It takes everybody working together. So we're not the clinicians, but we are the ones that...
We're like the conduit.
That's exactly right. I would say the conduit, the brokerage of services, whatever the case may be, and identifying the level that they need. I remember when I left the Corrections, Department of Corrections about 20 years ago. At that time, the mental health had gone from about 10% for the population to about 12%. And now has far doubled that. And then you've got to keep in mind these individuals are getting out. Where are they coming to? They're coming to our communities. So it's important that it is addressed. And I think a lot of times the county sheriffs will tell you that, unfortunately, sometimes county jails serve as de facto mental health facility.
Counseling centers or whatever.
And they have a challenging job, there's no doubt. But the earliest you can address it, by far the better. And Tug, I think that's going to be one of. I was asked not too long ago, what is the greatest challenge facing community supervision? And I said it's mental health, but it's not just mental health of those we're serving; it's our own staff,
absolutely,
and their well-being,
and the things that they have to see and deal with.
Yes, I mean these
and the suffering too, because I would imagine,
absolutely,
just as a human, when you know someone is in a very bad situation, and you feel for them as a human being, feel for them, that automatically is probably grating and wears you down.
It does. And through all the successes, and we have many, we have an 87% success rate, one of the highest in the nations.
That's amazing.
But there's a lot of negativity when you're going into these homes and you see families where you don't know if the baby's going to make it to the next day to be fed. There's just a whole host of things that bearing. And we started a peer support program for our agency, just like the State Patrol and GBI and others have done. Also, we always have an employee assistance program, and we have a Cortico Health and Wellness app that every employee can go to, whatever their need is, and just look at that app and find services. So there's three areas, but again, we can't help people be successful if we're making our own struggles.
Absolutely.
And so that's critical.
No, it is. And then I would have to think that if you're working on the mental health issue that we already know is a major problem for so many people in correction or out of corrections. Everybody is dealing with this to some degree, I would imagine. But it seems like if you're dealing with the mental health issue, then taking care of homelessness, taking care of maintaining a job, that would become more simple because they're not struggling in that mental health department where they might not be able to maintain their residence or their job.
Yeah.
So tackling that, is that the most important thing to tackle? Or is that the first thing you tackle?
I would say that is right there as the first thing, because what we find is those that are substance abusers, really it's dual diagnosis. It's the mental health, and they're trying to treat the mental health with substance abuse. So yes, you have to get that taken care of. And let me tell you, nothing matters if you don't have a roof over your head and food in your stomach. Nothing else matters. And that's why this is so intertwined. And when we talk about the housing issue, that is probably one of the second biggest challenges is finding folks to a place to live. And don't even get me started on the sex offender housing.
That's a whole
that's a whole nother day we could talk about that. But there are so many challenges. But yeah, I think you're right on the mental health part. You've got to get that stabilized, and you've got to get them on the right track, or they're not going to be receptive to anything else by their own choosing or not.
Yeah, that's right. Daniel, do you run across this at a second chance? Is this something that y'all have to almost educate yourself on, just how to handle folks who are in a mental health crisis or in just a crisis in their life?
Well,
where they've ran into, obviously they've gotten in trouble if they're at your doorstep. But having the ability or the knowledge just to help them through that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have parents that are, not from here, let's say, that get deported. You have children that you're dealing with that they may never see their parents again. I mean, we've seen over 20 plus years, we've seen so many different scenarios play out. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing that happens every day, right? So you have to, face those challenges and deal with them as best you know how. But having relationships with these people that work in these areas, the different courts, just all that stuff helps because it allows us to be pushing out the right messaging, right? And letting them know kind of, that they can talk to this person, or you can, hey, give these people a call. We're not
these folks
facilitating it, but we're at least, I try to provide as many resources as possible because I know especially at the beginning part, which he's coming in at the end, let's say, right? They've been dropped on their head. Some people go through this and this is just a way of life. And then some people just happen on bad luck and, wrong day, wrong time. But we try to promote that because I think it's important for the community and everything we're moving in the right direction, I guess is the best way to.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I will say one thing. There's no one entity or agency that can do it by themselves. It really, truly does take everyone that is working together. We have community coordinators in each one of our circuits, and officers need to be supervising cases and working with individuals. They don't have the time to go out and develop resource bases, so we have community coordinators in each circuit where they coordinate the resources. So the officer just says, I have this individual with this need. Here's a place I can refer them to.
Here's the number to call.
Absolutely. So that has worked extremely well with adoption of a person-centered supervision model, back to the one-size-fits-one approach. And at the end of the day, how you talk to people.
Well, that's absolutely. We saw that in college football the last few weeks.
Yeah.
How you talking to people, man? People are getting into fight over college football games and planting your flag in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So how you talk to people matters.
Yeah.
And I think just genuinely being respectful to people is going to open 1,000 more doors than being rude and hard to deal with, because that's going to close 1,000 of them.
We have what we call a lunch with our basic classes, and these are folks that are in training, 9-week training program to become an officer. And the one piece of advice, we call them a nugget, that I give them is, it doesn't matter who you come in contact with, treat everyone with courtesy, dignity, and respect.
Yeah.
And if you do
really
that, it really is. It's very simple, and it's like making a deposit every day, and you will get a return on your investment.
I think you're right.
It's not an issue where these individuals are coming from. It's an issue of where we're going to help them
go to. No, I love that. And so that actually leads me to something else that's near and dear to my heart, and I wonder how y'all do or deal with it at the Georgia Department of Community Supervision, as we talk to Commissioner Michael W. Nail here on Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3 with Daniel Madelon, the CEO of a Second Chance Bail Bonds and the Second Chance Monitoring. Where does faith come in? Because I would imagine some people that are in the system are very faithful folks. You got yourself sideways. I mean, it just happens. Life happens. And then there's going to be other folks that aren't faithful at all. How does faith, or does faith, play a role in anything y'all do?
Well, I think faith does, but it's not for us to determine that.
No, sure, of
with
course
the
not.
individual. But when you talk about faith-based providers, they are instrumental to our reentry efforts, and they're concerned about helping that individual because of that organization's faith. And so they are partners with us in the community each and every day, whether it be opening up their church for AA meeting, whether them providing mentorship.
A dear friend of mine goes to an AA meeting in the church.
Absolutely.
Dear friend.
And so they serve a vital part. And also, again, when you talk about corrections with faith and character-based dorms, and that, again, shows that these individuals have better behavior patterns. Is it directly attributed to their faith? I don't know, but I'm a believer that it's got to make some type of a difference. It cannot hurt. That I can assure you. It cannot hurt.
That's exactly
absolutely
right, man. It's so important. You created the probation options management program. Yeah. Talk to me about that and explain to me what it is first.
Yeah, when I say created it, I was part of it. Obviously, this is where when somebody's given probation, they can be centered under the Probation Option Management Act. And what it does, the judge is basically giving authority to our hearing officers who, although they are employed by us, they are neutral, and they allow them to hear violations of probation. Now, here's why that's important. Because judges are extremely busy on their calendars, to get on their calendars to hear a case. So when we set it up, we said, hey, you got 15 days as a hearing officer to get this petition filed and have this matter heard. And sometimes without that, they'll sit in jail 45 days, 60 days, 90 days, just waiting to get a probation hearing on a technical violation where the person sitting in jail is going, I did it. I didn't report. I didn't pay my money. I didn't attend treatment. So what do we do about that? And these hearing officers do a great job in applying the appropriate referral, but we also have a graduated sanctioning matrix that, depending on the risk and their need and the type of violation, officers have discretion as to what sanction to apply. And when it gets beyond the officer saying, I've done what I can do with this, that's where, if it's a probation ops management case, that hearing examiner and officer will hear that matter and make the appropriate recommendation up to a probation detention center placement. It has helped. We did an outcome study with it through the Pew Center, and it showed it saved individuals in jail time, which means cost to the counties. It saved judges time on their dockets because they weren't going to be backloaded with all of these type cases. That was absolutely incredible. And then it also showed that the sanction was based on what their need is.
When you say that, because you went through it, and all that makes sense to me, but I do have the question is, if a guy or a lady or whomever has gotten themselves in a situation and they can't get to the probation, and let's say their car broke down, I don't know, are they able to say, hey, it wasn't because they weren't trying, it's because their car broke down? I mean, is it something like that? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and first of all, that would probably never rise to a violation.
Okay.
A lot of people, there's a lot of myths.
I guess what I mean is just some simple thing that was out of their hands, that they were making the effort, and someone, either someone like you or someone in the organization, can say, hey, they were making the attempt. This was not someone who's trying to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up an interesting point. When I was at parole, we did away with all of our brick and mortar offices and went completely virtual.
Okay.
So you can't say they failed to report if they don't have anywhere to report to. And here's why. It's critical. Community supervision is done in the community. It's not done in an office that operates Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. That's not the real world.
That's right.
So we operate in a real world through virtual offices. We have a footprint in every circuit, but that is important to understand, and that's how we get to know these individuals and work with them, and that's why violations don't continue to pile on. Because if you work at it when it first happens, you're reducing greatly the chance of it happening again.
Commissioner, do you see a world where, and this is one part that we do see, is obviously the violation of probation, right? You talked about how they don't get into the courtroom for 45 days sometimes. What do you see? Is there any discussion with that at all? As far as what that, because we see it obviously, and I know there's thousands of people scattered throughout the state, right? So, and I know each jurisdiction's different than the next because how many judges they have and stuff like that. Obviously, that all plays a factor.
Yeah, I think you see it in pockets. I think you see the judiciary doing things to address it. I think you see where we're involved in it. We're trying to do things to address it separately, and then also with the judiciary. So I think there's a lot of money involved, but at the end of the day, there's freedoms involved, and that is extremely important. But I think that's always at the forefront of discussions. I don't think anybody's found the magic formula for it, though.
Yeah, because some of the messaging out there that we've gotten is well, hey, all these people are being held in custody, and people can't get out of jail, and it's like, no, but if you take a deeper dive, these are people that may or may not have violated their probation, and if it's a failed drug test or whatever the case is, that's why they're there, where they're making the subject sound like, oh, well, these people are all just stuck in jail. It's like, no,
let's treat it
right. It's it's clarifying.
And it's important to ask that question. Yeah, let's talk about who's in jail, because everybody wants to. They use the example of, hey, they didn't report, so now they get the probation violation revoked and they go to prison. That is not the case in the state of Georgia. Less than 1% of our population that we supervise is revoked to prison. And to be revoked to prison, you have to commit a new felony offense, a violent misdemeanor, or violate a special condition that has been set by the judge. So there's a lot of misconceptions. Number one, we don't have legal authority to just send somebody to prison for not reporting, for violating a technical condition. But I will say, if an officer issues a warrant, they've pretty much exhausted everything they can do with that individual. And the other thing is, if they're sentenced by the court and we make 5 or 6 attempts to get this individual under supervision, at some time you got to issue a warrant because you don't know where they're at. And so there's a lot that plays into that. And I think we go down a bad road when we generalize
on anything.
On anything, yeah. Instead of really peeling the onion layers back, so to speak.
Yeah, makes sense. What do you expect in 2025? We'll talk about that. Any big changes here with the folks, the Commissioner, Michael W. Wall of the Georgia Department of Community Supervision, next on Extra 106.3. This is Back Your Blue from Daniel Madelon and his team at A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. This is Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Coward, along with Daniel Madelon. He is the CEO of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. Our guest today on Back Your Blue, Commissioner Michael W. Nail, Georgia Department of Community Supervision. We've had so much discussion. I feel like I've learned so much today because I had no idea what you did. I mean, zero idea. And I think maybe people listening right now have that same understanding, at least a slight look behind, what it is that y'all do and what it is you're trying to accomplish. What is big in 2025? What are the things that you expect to be happening? Are there any changes? Any big events? What's happening next year for y'all?
Well, one of our, as an agency, biggest event, we'll celebrate our 10-year anniversary in July, and that 10 years represents a lot of work and success by a committed group of individuals. There's no doubt about that. We treat DCS as a family. We have one of the lowest attrition rates in state government, and we have the lowest in the law enforcement community for state. Last time I checked, I think it was last week, we had 21 vacancies out of 2,000. So it's a great place to work. But folks that are coming, they're coming because they want to make a difference, and they're staying because they're continuing to make a difference. And that doesn't mean it's an easy job at all, but it's a worthwhile, rewarding, and fulfilling job. So continuing to focus on our staffing, but also we just started a research and innovation hub that you can go on our website and you can look up all research that's associated with community supervision and some of our own research. We partner with University of Georgia. We partner with Georgia State. We partner with University of North Carolina. So there's a lot of research institutions. That's something we're really excited about, because if we follow the research and not our gut, we're going to be far more successful. And we kind of feel it's an obligation to provide that research to others. We don't share it. It's a public-facing website. In fact, if you want to look where we're going to be the next 3 to 5 years, you can go on our website and you can look at our strategic plan. We file one every year with the Office of Planning and Budget with the governor's office, and we turn that outward facing because I believe the public ought to know.
Transparency is always
absolutely
is so imperative, especially in the line of work that you're in. Because if you want people to trust you, you have to show them that they can.
Absolutely.
And I think that's great that you're doing that. And it's something else you said, that what you do is hard work. And I would say that anything worth doing, any hard work that you want a good outcome on, it's going to be hard. I mean, you could boil it down to going to the gym. Like, getting in shape ain't easy. Getting in shape's really hard, but on the other end of that hard work, it's valuable. There's real value there. What do you want people to know, Commissioner Nail, about the Georgia Department of Community Supervision as we close out? What do you want folks to know about that?
I want you to know we're a critical part of the criminal justice system. We're the one agency, the only agency that does what we do. Which is important. I want you to know the value that we bring in not just providing opportunities to change to individuals, but also the benefit to others that are connected to that individual. It's absolutely important in that we operate off of a mantra of one officer, one family, and one community. That's really what DCS is all about.
That's a great mantra. What keeps you busy when you ain't working, man? Because it sounds.
I don't know. He's always busy.
That's what I'm saying. No. It seems like there's zero time to do anything but work. But if you're not, I mean, are you watching college football? Are you out hitting a golf ball around?
Yeah,
are you a gardener? What do you? Are you a foodie? What do you like to do, man?
No, I tell you. First of all, go Dogs.
Sick 'em.
And then I love to play at golf, not golf. I buy cheap golf balls because why pay for expensive ones? You're going to lose so much. I enjoy that. I enjoy hiking. I've been blessed. My wife is stuck with me for 32 years. I admire her guts and question her judgment. I have,
and you work in a field of judgment. It actually takes on
and but in two wonderful children that are married, so that's where I devote my time.
Yeah, that's
so
a good spot, man.
It is. It really is. And it is a balance, and that's one other thing we tell our staff. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. You've got to have that work-life balance. That is absolutely important.
Well, I gotta tell you, when I look at this list of things that you're part of, and I don't know how does that work for you, man? I mean, you can preach the message, but if you ain't living the message, how do you do it?
No, I live the message.
Do you?
Yeah. The people under me will agree with you.
The list I'm looking at says you don't.
No,
I ain't trying to call you out or anything. I'm just saying you look like a busy man.
No, I'm blessed to work with and for good people.
That's awesome.
That's what makes it easy.
Absolutely. And then state of Georgia, man, there's just not a better place in the world to be. That's why so many people want to be here, and I understand it. I'm born and raised here, so when I left for the military, I never changed my license. I was even stationed in Florida where I could have had no state tax, but I was not willing to give away my Georgia license to do it because I love the state so much, and I bet you feel the same way.
Well, I do. I love the state of Georgia. There's no doubt. I love Governor Kemp and his administration and what he does in supporting our agency and the legislature. And I couldn't think of a better place that I would want to live, work, and serve. And so I'm blessed because of that. But love the state of Georgia.
Yes, sir. Me too. Daniel, thank you so much for being here, man. Thank you for making this show happen. Without you, it doesn't. Daniel is the CEO of a Second Chance Bail Bonds and Monitoring here on Back Your Blue. Our guest, Commissioner Michael W. Nail, Georgia Department of Community Supervision. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Always.